And a good day to you, Explorer Nation. John Lynskey here with Season 5, Episode 10. Yes, we've hit double digits on this one. A very special guest on Looking Back with Lynskey today. Hall of Famer, 34 years at Columbus High School. Where does the time go? Great science teacher, been dean of faculty, an alumni mom, an alumni wife, which is pretty interesting, has done just about everything someone can do at Columbus. So it's a real pleasure to introduce someone who is actually wrapping up her career here at Columbus High School. Still in her prime, though, the one and only Teri Chomat. Teri, welcome to the show.
Good morning, John. Thank you for that intro. Yes, where did time go? It just seems like it flies by when you're having fun.
Yes. The days are long, but the years are short. And I when you told me 34 years, I'm like, no. But then you do the math, and yes.
I started in 1990, John. Just
Yeah.
the other day.
Just last week. So it's great to have you on. We've been talking, Melissa and I, about how much the demographics of Columbus has changed, not just with our student body, though, but with our faculty. Because as you know, when I was in school, when Kiki, your husband, was in school, you could count, you didn't need 10 fingers to count the women that worked at Columbus, including the secretaries. And now, all these years later, they represent probably 40% of the faculty.
35 to 40%.
Yeah.
You're correct, John.
Yeah. And take on so many important roles, and you represent that. And so, talking to someone who's seen it all, going way back, and the changes, I think we're going to have a great episode today. So, you told me a very interesting story yesterday. How you got to Miami. You were not born here. So before we get into high school and everything else, just talk about your life journey to Miami.
Okay, John, pretty much it is my life journey, but it's thanks to my parents that I got here. My dad worked in steamships all the time. He was a freight forwarder, which is the same business he works here now. He started his own business when he had an opportunity.
Okay.
But he was very vocal against the government, and he was very friendly with one of the ship's captain. And the captain told him, "You're going to be arrested tomorrow. Do you want to get out?" And he said, "Sure." So he took him in as a stowaway. He told my mom, "I've got to go or I'm going to get arrested. Just let everybody, in order for you to get out with your daughter, with me, you got to tell everybody that I left you, including my parents, including the family. You can't tell anyone else." And that's exactly what she did. I was a year and a half when my dad left. He left as a stowaway. The ship was on his way to Jamaica, and the captain had set up someone to pick him up at Jamaica, and the captain nicely had paid a flight back to Miami, where my dad had cousins that were going to help him out. But he got a call that they thought that my dad was in the ship. So they were waiting for him in Jamaica to ship him back to Cuba. So the captain, my dad owes a lot to him, said, "I'm going to go as close to shore as possible. You're going to have to swim out, and they'll wait for you." And that's what my dad did. He swam to shore, and then the connection picked him up and was able to ship him to Miami. In the meantime, my mom told his mom that he had left her, that he no longer loved her, was probably having an affair somewhere, and he didn't know anything. The sad thing is that he had a very good friend who was part of the Communist Party as he grew up, and he walked to my mom's door and he said to her, "I know that's a lie, and you will never get out, because I will make sure of that."
Jesus.
So in order for my mom and I to get out, she had to move her permanent residence to Havana. We lived in Las Villas, which was a province in Cienfuegos. Translation is 100 fires. So my boys joke around, "You were from 100 fires, Mom." And she would travel, her and I would travel on a bus every Sunday night to Havana to stay with an aunt, which was a new permanent residence for her. And then would travel back to Cienfuegos Friday night so she could spend the weekend with her parents and our actual real place where we lived. And thanks to that, a year and a half later, my dad was able to get us out. So I came in 62 and he left, I'm going to say early 61. So I was maybe 4 months old when he left. And he didn't see me again until I was about a year and a half. So I give them a lot of credit because they were young. My dad was 25 and my mom was 20. And I look at my own kids at 20 and 25, and it's a whole different world, and they made it happen.
Yeah, and the classic example of given an opportunity in a land of freedom to make something of yourself and how important that is. And so it's an amazing story and a credit to, I remember that period, the wave of Cubans coming over who would do anything to get ahead, work like dogs, and tremendous work ethic. So, that's quite a story. And, they obviously wanted the best for you. So they sent you went to high school at Immaculata LaSalle.
I did. And I remember the basketball games against Columbus. We always came over and were looking forward to those because at the time it was a big rivalry.
Yes, it was.
LaSalle and Columbus. So we did. I remember coming.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what your high school recollections were of Columbus. And so you remember the basketball games. And
I remember the basketball games and the dances. How can I forget?
Yeah, those dances.
Oh,
yes.
Different world, very different from the world we live in and our high school dances and even our basketball games.
Yeah, that's very true. But I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it at all.
Wonderful. Great years at LaSalle.
So you go to college at Berry, and all of us who work at Columbus, each one of us has taken a different route to get there. Each one of us has taken a different route into education. Some people knew from the earliest age they wanted to be a teacher. Some people stumbled into it. Some are somewhat in between. So what was your journey to not only to teaching, but to Columbus itself?
Okay. To teaching, I started college in as a pre-med major. And in all honesty, with respect to my mentors in biology, after my first biology class, I said, no more of this. I love the chemistry, I love the math, but biology was not going to happen. So I switched my major and I switched it to education because I think as a child, I always wanted to be a teacher. Okay. And I really enjoyed the chemistry, thought there was a lot of fun you could do with it. The ironic thing is that almost my senior year, I was introduced to computers. That's where we were starting with computers. Oh, yeah. I learned Fortran and I loved it. I probably had I been a little younger, I might have also done something with computer programming, but I was at the end. My parents couldn't continue to help pay for an education. So I continued on with chemistry. And at LaSalle, I had Sister Elizabeth Worley, who made a world of difference in my life as a teacher. I wasn't a very good chemistry student at the time, and lots of D's and F's, whereas I was a good student. And I remember her telling me, you know the stuff, you just don't believe in yourself. So I took maybe my third test and I handed it in half blank. And she gave it back to me and she said, you know what's on it and I'm not going to take it. And I said, but sister, I've got to go. And she said, well, you're not going. I'm letting the office know that you're sitting here all day till you answer the questions. I ended up with a B- on that test and with no help from her. And after that, in all honesty, John, it was like my favorite subject in the world because I had gained the confidence. And I'll never forget that. And I wanted to do that for some student throughout my career. So I started off, graduated from college, and I applied at a couple high schools, but it just didn't pan out. So I applied at Miami-Dade Wolfson campus. And I got the job there. I was a paraprofessional in the chem labs. I taught 4 chemistry labs as well as organic chemistry, the intro, the first, the regular 2 chemistries freshman year. And I also taught some of the lower level math because I do have a minor in math. So I taught some of the minor maths. I worked there for 8 years. My son Alex was born and I was at Miami-Dade. And so was Michael when I was at Miami-Dade. So I have 2 little ones. And Alex started at St. Kevin's. And because of my schedule, I started very early at downtown. I had to be there about 6:30 in the morning downtown. It was a hike. I lived out in Kendall. Kiki used to take the kids to school. So he took Alex to St. Kevin's, and he says to me, there's this lady here who has her son in Alex's class, and she works at Columbus. I'm going to talk to her because I want you to work at Columbus. And I said, hun, just because you talk to someone, it doesn't happen. And sure enough, it was Alina Sanchez.
There you go.
So Alina talks to Kiki and says, what does your wife do? Sure, tell her to give me a resume. And she goes, well, she's a chem major. Oh my God, we need somebody. We need a chemistry. Starting next year, Brother Bernie was the chemistry teacher. Mm-hmm. He was retiring, and he was going to be going into the accounting department. And sure enough, she handed the resume. I think maybe 2 weeks later, I got a call for an interview. I really wasn't ready. It was just like, this is happening. I remember coming to Columbus, and it was an interview I really wasn't ready for either. It was with Brother Kevin, who was principal. Assistant principal was Brother Felix. Brother John Venturella was dean of students, and Pat Call was the head of department. And they walked me into a round table, and they drilled me from all ends. And I'm thinking, why did I do this to myself here? And do I really need this? And I will never forget, with a math minor, they said, well, you can actually teach math as well. And I said, sure, I can. And Brother Kevin said, can you teach geometry? Absolutely, I can teach geometry.
Sure.
John, the truth is that I didn't take geometry in college. The last time I saw geometry, I was a freshman in high school. So I remember walking out, and Kevin looked at me and he goes, you got the job. So I walked out, and I used those huge cell phones that we used to have, which were like blocks.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I said, you better start looking for geometry books, because I've got to spend all summer learning geometry or relearning, because I'm teaching geometry. And he said, I thought you were applying for chemistry. I am. I'm teaching that too. And that's how I landed here.
There's a life lesson right there to the guys in school. Even if you have an opportunity and they say, can you do this? You just agree, and then you figure it out. Just figure it out, because you're not going to get that many opportunities. And so here you are, you're a young mom, little kids, walking into 1990 Columbus High School. And there was no, unlike the great program you created and have supervised for so long, the Lavala program, it was throw you in the deep end of the pool. And if you swim, great. If you don't, that's fine. So what was it like for you walking into that environment?
I think walking in the first day and just seeing the faculty was like, wow, I'm in a different world. Yeah. Miami-Dade was multicultural, to say the least, particularly the downtown Wolfson campus. And I walked in here and I said, wow, very few women. Most were men. To be honest, a lot of Anglos at the time still working here, in comparison to where I had worked downtown, where everybody seemed to be Hispanic. I knew to keep my mouth shut and learn and watch from the females that were here. Now, Irene Colmo took me under her wing. Madi Sanchez. I remember going to Alina. Alina would say, this is what you have to do. Delilah was Alina's sister. Delilah and I went to college together. So did not know that when I initially met Alina. So it was kind of something I found out once I got here. And they took me under their wing, and they told me what I should say and what I shouldn't. And honestly, if they said something, then they said jump. My next question was, how high? The only thing I will correct you, John, the Lavala program started thanks to, way back when it did start, thanks to Pat Call and Pedro Garcia Casal. I was part of that then, but they initially started because we knew people needed help, because I was given 2 books of 2 different chemistry books and a geometry book. And that's when we used to loan the books. And I said, but can I teach it the same? And I was said, no, you teach it differently, because we're going to follow the chapter order. So I had 3 preps, although I used to have a tough time keeping track on which chem book I was using for which class. I would start, oh no, we haven't covered that. Okay, let me switch over gears. That was kind of hard to keep up with, but it was a good lesson to be learned. And I will tell you that the biggest lesson in terms of the classroom I learned from John Roach, our
Okay.
math guru at the time.
Yeah.
Teaching geometry, I walked in. I remember he came to observe me, and I said, John, I'm frustrated. Some of these kids aren't making the grades. I don't know what else to do. I'm helping them. And he looked at me because if you remember, John had a special grading system. Check plus, minus, minus plus, check A, and things like that, and which I never
It
understood.
looked like the launch sequence to Apollo 11. I've never seen anything like it.
I
Yeah.
agree. And so I
Yeah.
tried to get him to teach me that. He said, that's not going to work for you. But he said, I'm going to tell you something. Your job is not to fail them. Your job is to get them to learn. So I have faith in you. I'm sure you'll do it. And he walked out. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And you know what? He forced me to figure out what that meant to me. And what that meant to me is what I developed through the years is, okay, you get an extra worksheet. This is your ticket to sit to retest, because I'm not just going to retest because you failed. You're not interested. I'm not interested in extra work. I'll do extra work if you're willing to put it in.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I developed a system that really worked for me, but he was right. Even today, sometimes I look at teachers that come in and say, well, they're just not doing the work, and they're just not doing the work. And they're right. The boys aren't doing the work, but your job is to figure out what it's going to take to get them to do the work. And I think that is so important as a teacher to understand that you're not just giving out information, you're motivating, you're making them interested, you're engaging them. That should be a priority. And I think John, in his own way, taught me that without really knowing that that's what he was telling me, or maybe he did know, and I'm the one that didn't.
I would bet he knew exactly what he was saying, but it's important to have all those wonderful mentors you just mentioned. That was how we survived back then, because there was no manual. I mean, and it was a different place. How long, Tara, did it take you to feel comfortable to say, I got this? And I understand when you're teaching something new or different, unexpected. If you're a day ahead, you're lucky, But so how long before you could say, I got my feet on the ground, I understand these kids, I know what I'm doing?
John, I even part of the Laval, I tell people it takes 3 years. It takes
Mm,
3 years to establish your name.
mm,
It takes 3 years for the boys to understand, wow, she means business.
mhm.
I think the biggest compliment I get was, she's fair. She's tough, but she's fair. You know, um, the philosophy, don't smile till January. That works, but that doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes they need to know you're human. So you have
Yeah.
to be able to talk to them. You have to be able to understand, but they really are interested in sometimes tough love, sometimes tough love. I learned a lot from my students. I learned sometimes that it was okay not to be ready for a test. I won't say that to a class in front of them, but it's okay, because sometimes chemistry is not at the top of the agenda in their life. If their parents are getting a divorce, if there was a big family celebration the night before, I understand those things now, which maybe at the time I didn't. They have to get their work done. And I think it was Dennis Lavelle's son who taught me a very important lesson that he doesn't know he taught me. It was Marist Achievement. And he was getting one of the science awards. And I remember walking up to Dennis and saying, where's your son? He's at home studying for your test. And I thought to myself, that is unacceptable. He should fail my test and be here to celebrate his success. So I learned a lot through the years that family, success, and there are other things that are more important than chemistry. Although I'll never tell the students I teach that.
Of course, of course. Being fair, I think, and consistent. If the boys know how it's going to be every day, and the other thing, Terry, you got to be prepared. They actually don't want to waste time. They get insulted if you're not ready. They expect to be taught. They might moan about it and everything, but they want you to be prepared. They want to have something to do. which a lot of people don't believe, but it's a fact. If you're prepared, it might be a day ahead, like we said, but that's fine. They know you're ready.
Absolutely, John. And then they get excited about it. I remember I had Chris Cab in class,
Yeah.
and Friday was rap day, and he would create a rap on all the chemistry we had taught that week. And I would give him the last 5 minutes of class to perform the rap. And it was awesome. And the kids, I could hear them sometimes rapping what he had said during a test, trying to remember his connections, So I wholeheartedly agree. You keep them engaged, you keep them on the whole time, and you make it interesting, you make it fun, and you make it human. I mean, this is part of your life.
Okay, now there's a great point right there. You know, history guy, it's easy to teach history. It really is. If you can't teach history, there's something wrong. I always find it interesting hearing you say it, hearing somebody like Joe Weber talking about math. How do you make chemistry interesting? That, yeah, World War II, how hard is that? Chemistry. So how what would you do?
Demonstrations are a big deal.
Okay.
Bring things in, blow things up.
Yeah, blowing things up is always good. Yes.
Blowing things up is always a lot of fun. The louder the noise, the more unprepared they're expecting. Wow, what happened? Do it again. Do it again. They love that. I think that is really a big issue in chemistry. And then you bring it back. But it's not just the labs. If you had the opportunity to do at least a demo a week, they would be waiting every week to, what are we doing this week? Which one are we going to do? They like it. It makes a difference, and it becomes real. It really does. So I would say that that's the easiest way. Honestly, John, for some of us that don't like history, you're a great storyteller, but I've had plenty of history teachers that weren't very engaging because I was bored. So I think it also goes in the personality and what's going on.
Well, I apologize for that because you got shortchanged because, I mean, come on now. So, and we've had a number of women like this. What was it like? Obviously, I never had this experience. What was it like having your sons in school? That's different.
It definitely is, John. It definitely is. I had three, and they each had their own personalities.
Yes, they did. Yes.
You've known all three. Alex was my oldest. Alex was pretty much okay with it, I would say. I mean, there were scenarios where I'm sure he would have preferred I wasn't here, like most young men would prefer their mom is not hanging around. So I really made an effort to avoid. I used to be very involved in all the dances and chaperone. I tried to not go to most of them because by the time Alex was a senior, I was already helping Irene with prom. So it's tough because your mom's, kind of like the prom princess, as we used to say. Irene, prom queen. So, she's going to the prom. I've got a date with. He handled it well. Michael would have preferred I worked elsewhere. That was just his personality. He would say, Mom, maybe you could find another job while I'm at Columbus. Well, obviously that didn't pan out for him, but that was his personality too. So I really made an effort to give him extra space. If there was ever an issue with any of my boys, please talk to the father, avoid discussion with me. And then there was Danny, who was very easygoing about it. I would say, I don't know, it's because Danny grew up here. He was baptized in our chapel. So this was home away from home. So the fact that I was there was almost like I was home, and I attempted to give them space.
I get that. And there was an age gap with Danny,
Yes.
Yeah. So I get that. You hit on a key word a moment ago, involvement. I think one of the great things that the boys respect is not what goes on aside from the classroom. When they see their teachers come to events, supervising things, it means a great deal to them. And you have always been involved. If there's an event going on, you're there.
Well, I remember when I interviewed in that wonderful meeting that was there with Pat Call and Brother Kevin and Brother Felix and Brother John at the time. one of the things, and maybe it was the thing that got me the job, I was very adamant that a high school teacher is not just there to impart knowledge and learn. If you
Yeah.
can't be there all the other times to make a difference, then you shouldn't be a high school teacher. Stay in college and impart knowledge there. It's about going to the football game. It's about going to the baseball game. It's about letting the young man know, in this case, that you care and you're there for their support. And I had a lot of that at LaSalle, and I thought that's what being a high school teacher was all about. And actually, I said that in their interview. They said, "Why would you want to be a high school teacher when you're happy in college?" I go, "Because I want to make a difference." And in college, you give them the tools to move on, but you don't necessarily make a difference because ultimately, John, most of my students are not chemists in the real world. But hopefully I touched them in some way where they will be able to grow. And what do you learn in science? But critical thinking skills, which are
Mhm.
so essential for the rest of your life.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's what they learn outside of the book in the classroom that matters. And,
Absolutely.
involvement is a big part of that. So, Terry, married to a graduate, 3 sons. How difficult was it not to bring work home all the time and talk about what's going on? And Kiki talking about how it used to be, and you're talking about how it is, and you've got boys in school. Uh, how did you deal with that?
Well, John, I think family life is very important. So I think once the kids started their own activities, it was easy because if whether they were at Columbus or they were in lower grades, the focus was their activity. It wasn't
Mm,
necessarily at Columbus. I think conversations about Kiki and talking to me about how Columbus was maybe happened when the children weren't around or when they weren't even here. I mean, my first introduction to Columbus and Brother Kevin, I will tell you, was in 1983, 84, where I had no idea I was going to work here. Kiki came home from work. We were just married, had no money, trying to make it with, had just bought a townhouse where I think interest rates were 12% on a loan. So we were paying big bucks. And
yeah.
he comes in and he said, "I saw Brother Kevin today." And I'm like, "Who's Brother Kevin?" And he said, "Well, he's the principal at Columbus." "Oh, good. Did you say hello?" "Well, he came and asked for money." And I said, "I'm sure you didn't give him any." He goes, "Well," I'm like, "I can't believe you
You
gave Brother
can't
Kevin money.
you
I don't
can't give what you don't have. Yeah.
think." And he looked at me and he said, "Terry, you know what he asked me for? He asked me for $10 a month for the next 5 years." I said, "Wow, that's what he asked." He goes, "So how do I tell the man I don't have $10 a month?" So even before I even had children or knew about Columbus, and of course, at that time, now I'm hearing all of Kiki's stories, we were giving Columbus $10 a month for 5 years. And I couldn't say no because how do you say no to that?
You
So you don't. And then I didn't take work home, but Columbus did give me the opportunity as each one of my boys came here, they had alone time with each child.
mm,
And John, I know I told you this once, and I will repeat it again. I learned that sadly at your father's funeral mass.
mm.
One of your siblings got up and said, "My dad was special because even though there are lots of us, he always took time to spend it with each one of us." I think I told you that not too long ago, but I
You did.
carried that with me because it
Yeah.
made such an impression. And I've always felt that alone time with each child is essential. So I used to have breakfast in the morning with one of the boys coming to school at McDonald's on 97th and Sunset. And
Perfect.
we joke around, even when they come home, "Hey, mom, you want to stop at the McDonald's?" It wasn't the McDonald's or it wasn't the food. It was those 20 minutes of just alone time sharing. And we shared our Columbus stories at that point. That point, I was a mom. It didn't matter if I was a teacher. It was, let's share with mom Columbus stories because dad understands, but maybe mom doesn't.
That's awesome. That's great. Looking back over 34 years, if you think about how it was when we came in, there was still a mimeograph machine and things like that,
And purpose.
AV machines, overheads, all that stuff. The technological changes have been, it's a quantum leap. It's literally a different world. As involved as you are with the academics of Columbus, have the changes in technology been a complete positive? What are your thoughts on technology and the classroom today, where we're at?
Okay, John. I believe, and maybe it's because I learned that as a child from my parents, that the one thing no one can ever take away from you is what you learn. They lost their home, they lost their money, but the knowledge they brought with them, no one could ever take that away. And I that's what I was taught as a child. So you cannot neglect to learn, so to speak. As technology increased, I remember wanting to learn more. And even today, as we look forward to next year, we're looking at a new plan book system, a new way of planning. I don't need to do it. I don't have a class. I know our CTech team is following that. Um, why not? So I took over the weekend. They created a class for me, and I planned 2 or 3 classes. So when we met with them, I had questions, and some of the people in CTech, hey, you've done your homework. I did, because if I don't know how to do it, I can't help you all continue to make progress with it. Are there drawbacks? Absolutely. Are there drawbacks? I mean, with a kid having a cell phone, an iPad, and a MacBook, is it tough to teach? Yeah, but some teachers will say, well, they used to put notes in their ties. John, do you remember? You flipped the tie and there were all the notes there.
That might have happened. Yeah.
Yeah, things like that happen, and were we as prepared? Kids are kids. They're going to find a way, and you just kind of have to stay on top of them, stay engaged with them, stay true to them. I believe it will change. And now we've got AI coming in.
Yeah.
What's scary for us?
Yes.
Honestly, it is a scary thought. We need to embrace and figure out how to make it to good use. That's just my take with technology and where we're going, because saying it's not going to happen doesn't make it stop.
No. I talked to Pedro Garcia Casals about this in our podcast. AI is, I mean, it's not coming, it's here.
That's correct.
And it's trying to balance all that. And I still believe there is a role for a teacher to actually teach. Those are enhancements. They're not the primary. And I think hopefully there will always be a place for a human being standing there dispensing knowledge and exchanging ideas. I hope that never changes.
I don't think it will, John. I think it's so important to be personal. I think that's why Columbus has great success, in all honesty, because I think our focus is have presence with these kids.
Yeah.
Make sure they know you care. If they know you care, they care. And they care about you. I'll never forget a couple of kids taking an AP test. They came back from the AP Chem and said, Miss, I tried, but I couldn't do it for you. And I said, stop right there. You couldn't do it for yourself.
Yeah.
I've already done my job.
Yeah.
You've come a long way, and wherever you're at, be proud of that. Because let's say you don't get that 4 or 5 on the AP test. When you go to college, you're going to tutor everybody sitting in that room if you still want to take it. I guarantee how many emails I got. You were right. These people don't know anything.
Yeah.
That's the difference. You just had a bad test day. And that's the thought process. And that can happen to anybody, John. You just have to be positive. Kids need to believe they can pull it off, and they need to know you care, because they will perform. Boys are very good about that. I think their academic maturity is not as up to par with a female, possibly, maybe a little more maturity from a girl. And that's a general statement, John. No offense, I hope, is taken.
No, it's a fact, I think. Yeah.
But when they want to do it, they can do whatever they set their mind to do, and they care.
To your point, there's an old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That is so true.
And I thought that was always essential part of teaching. Now, we've already discussed there was no preparation, no help, throw you in the deep end of the pool. Talk about how important the Lavala program will be to new teachers at Columbus.
Okay, when it started way back when, I think Pedro and Pat had a vision that they saw a lot of our teachers struggling just with the day-to-day and with things that might be common sense to us, some of us, but maybe not so common to everyone, so to speak. So they started a program and they met. I don't remember how many times we met. We met maybe once a month at that time. And I was part of that. And that lasted, I don't remember how many years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then it kind of died out. Pat Call, I don't know if was an administrator at the time, but once she became an administrator, in order for this, in my opinion, for the program to work, is you can't be an administrator in the program. You shouldn't even be a department leader and be in the program, because everybody sees you as their boss. So if they're really having a problem, they're not going to come to your boss, hey, I'm a disaster in the class, help me. Generally, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So it kind of died. And then I kind of picked it up. John, I was thinking back, Maria Acevedo's been doing it. I've been in this position 5 years. So she's been doing it 5 years, maybe about 15 years back or 12 years back. I would say I did it for 8 years. And I remember when I started it, Dave Pugh came to see me and said, Teri, there's a need. And I said, I'd be happy to work with that. A lot of people have helped me out, and maybe it's my turn to help out. And the first time I ran it, we only had 8 sessions. And I remember at the 8th session, because I'm very big in letting people tell me how we can improve. I used to, right now at Columbus, we do student evaluations of the classes, but I always did them when we didn't do it. I used to give the kids what I used to give out in college. I want your feedback, and I won't look at it until after grades are in. So we used to have feedback. And that first group said, we need more sessions. This is just not going to cut it. We need help. And we boosted up to, I would say the first quarter, they meet weekly. Then after that, they meet every 2 or 3 weeks. And then towards the end of the quarter, 3 weeks, it would be exact. There's about anywhere from 15 to 18 meetings throughout the year. What do we talk about? The Marist charism, because this is a Marist school, and that should be our priority, whether you teach math, whether you teach English, to be able to teach as Marcelin's vision was, to care about them, for them to see the presence, for them to see that you actually care, that you want them to make Jesus Christ known and loved in whatever their passion is. It doesn't matter whether you're a plumber or you're a physician or you're an architect. You've got to care for people, and you've got to make Jesus Christ known and loved. And that is what these new individuals coming to Columbus have to understand. You got to buy in. If you don't buy in, it's not going to happen for you. And then the nuts and bolts of classes. John, for you and I, walkathon, we know what's happening. And sometimes we have general meetings and we say, well, at walkathon, the students are going to do this. And a new person is like, what are you talking about? I have no clue. What does it mean in my class? And the food fest. And the fun. This is kind of like the way it goes. I mean, right now we're having wrestling matches, sumo wrestling matches, part of walkathon events. So that's the part that's also the nitty gritty, and what's it like, and what's a homeroom, and flexibility. We have 4 or 5 different schedules. What happens tomorrow? That's what the new teachers also need help in. But every new employee is now attending Lavala, so everyone understands the Marist mission. So if you work as an administrative assistant, or you work in the MOS, a lot of times they only come to the sessions that relate to the Marist charism, and we can leave out the teaching sessions. Who runs those meetings? It's run by a group of teachers who dedicate their time to do this. And who do we bring in to speak but your colleagues? Because we have a wealth of information here. Everybody we don't need to go out. It's here. Let's just learn from each other. Learn from each other.
So that was a logical transition. 5 years ago, you joined the administration as dean of faculty. I know what it was like for me, and everybody's got a different experience. What was it like for you? What was the most revealing thing leaving the classroom and going into the administration? Well, thankfully for both of us, Dave Pugh as principal, you couldn't work for a better guy.
Well, I've got to say, working not just with Dave Pugh, with the team that we've got. I mean, Trujillo and I joined together, so I almost feel like he's my partner in crime, even though he is staying on and Teri may not. I have to say, Chris and I joined Columbus the same year.
Yeah,
So
you did.
there's kind of a bond there without really necessarily growing that. I understand Chris, and he's always been very supportive. Uh, right now we've got Bob. So what can I say? Much wonderful. He's been a great addition. Then I've got Juan and Pedro, who are my partners in crime, so to speak. Thanks to them, I'm very, very successful. So working with such a great group of men, in particular, Dave's leadership and what he can see. And actually, I joined when Tom Krusek joined.
Yeah,
So
right.
we all joined together.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got hit with COVID, and we can talk about that at a later date.
Yeah,
But
good times. Yeah.
but the reality is that it made such a difference. Now, your question is, when did I realize I was an administrator? Because I'm going to say that that's a realization too.
Mhm.
I think the first year I was introduced as dean of faculty, and I said, I don't know if I want to be called an administrator. I want to be called Teri. And I pretty much told the faculty, and I still say, I can't do my job if I can't help you. So if you need help, come and see me, because that is my job, to make sure you are successful. And that's the way I see the dean of faculty. And I would say the most revealing part is, I don't know who came and said, I need to do this, and do you think it's okay? And I looked at that person and I said, I need to verify that with an administrator. And they looked at me and said,
Oh,
you
by
are
the way.
an administrator. And I said, oh yeah, I am. I guess I better tell. All right, you can go ahead and do that. And then it just kind of threw me. I didn't expect it came out of my mouth. I got to verify with an administrator. It was just funny. It was a realization that happened somewhere in the first year of, okay, yes. Now I feel much more comfortable if somebody asks me a question, I can make a decision. But
That's-
that was the first time that anybody said, can I do this? I don't even know if they were leaving early. It wasn't a big question, but it was like, I better ask an administrator.
That's pretty funny. But there is a big change. And, in your position, you're dealing with a very, very wide variety of people that have been there more than 40 years and people that have been there 4 months and everything in between. And you have an amazing ability to know how to talk to someone who, yeah, they've forgotten more than most people know, but they still have to be up to speed on things. And then you're bringing the new people along, and that's a balancing act there.
I won't disagree. It is a balancing act. And the fact that I've worked here for so long is to my advantage. John, I never had any desire to be an administrator. You know how people want to be this, and I want to be, I wanted to be a classroom teacher.
I get that. Yeah.
And if you ask me, why did you do it? Why did you accept? The truth is that I have had so many mentors, the brothers, the women on this faculty, the coaches. I mean, I could go back forever. Everybody made a difference in my life. And I realized that some of those mentors aren't here anymore. They've retired, they've moved on, or some of them have passed away. And I was looking at myself and I thought, it's my turn to step up and fill those shoes and help out as many as I can to do the best they can. And yes, because I know the individuals, that has helped me tremendously on how to approach people. I won't disagree. That makes a big difference. If you know people, you know who they are, you know what they stand for, and you know how to approach them. And sincerely, the goal is just to be better and to be able to reach more kids and to make a difference. That's the only goal we have. And at least that's the only goal I have, to make a difference in everyone you see and touch.
Any regrets leaving the classroom, becoming an administrator?
I like the classroom, and I've walked in, and I think it was one of my chemistry colleagues, and I don't know if it was Lou or Yadira. I walked up and I was observing, and they said, well, what are your thoughts? And honestly, I jumped up, and they sat in the back with a smile on their face, and they said, you miss it. And I said, I absolutely do. So it is what it is. This year I've made a greater effort to identify with the kids, because even in my position, you as dean of students, dealt with the students a little more. In my position, I didn't. So this year, I've really made an effort to kind of talk to the kids more, because they're the reason we're here. This Columbus wouldn't exist if we didn't have students. I mean, we can be an enterprise, we can have 20 billion events, we can do lots of things, but it's the kids sitting in the class that makes a difference. And that's the one we're here for.
Couldn't agree more. It's a great answer. What was it like to go into the Hall of Fame?
It was interesting. It was an honor. There were a lot of people there that, sometimes you wondered, it never crossed my mind that I would be there, John. Again, when I was nominated, I thought, wow, what a difference. Why me was the first question I answered. What have I done? And when I had to write the talk, I thought, look at all the people that made a difference, most of which are there for me. They mentored me along. It's an honor. It's an honor to be in the Hall of Fame, and it's an honor to be there with so many people that have meant so much to Columbus. For that, I thank the Columbus family, the Columbus community, because I really never expected to be there.
Well, it was definitely, you earned it, no doubt about that. When did you know it was the right time to announce your retirement? I mean, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. It's a big, very happy for you guys, but it's a big loss for Columbus. But to your credit, and we've seen it, nobody wants to be the aging athlete or the aging rock star that holds on too long. You're at your prime. And so what was behind the decision, if you don't mind me asking?
Not at all, John. My husband and I love traveling. And to be honest, it's a lot less expensive to travel in September than it is to travel in June and July. And I know that some people may be teachers and travel in September, but I don't think that's acceptable. Okay. The reality is that we'd love to travel, and we want to be young and be able to enjoy traveling. We did El Camino in Spain, and we walked the walk. And sometimes, I'd like to go back and do that again. We enjoy it. We want to retire when we can. My parents are now elderly and not doing so well. So I also have to spend a little more time with them and taking care of them. I've got 4 grandkids that I want to enjoy. And I do all of that now, and I work a full time. But sometimes I feel like it's not fair to everybody, if you understand what I mean. I'd like to do a little more here, a little more there. And then I still want to do a good job where I'm at. And it comes a point where and that's where I'm at. In all honesty, I know it's time. It's taken me a long process. I don't just make decisions day by day. I think my decision was made sometime in October. I think I formally announced it to the administration early December. And just last week, I announced it to the department leaders. I wanted to give Columbus plenty of time to find somebody. I'm more than happy to help in the transition. And so graciously, Tom and Dave have agreed that if I can help on a part-time manner, I will, if it works out well for both of us.
Well, Teri, I got to tell you, I know you have an administrative meeting coming up, but we could keep going and going and going. It's been a lot of fun. But one last question. And you're very close to the Marist brothers, always have been. But what does being Marist mean to you?
Okay, that's a really good question. And you are right. The Marist brothers, I think when I felt like they had when we all started working here, it was like open arms. They would invite us, or at least Kiki and I were often invited to their homes. We were involved, so we got involved in a lot of activities with them. And the way they lived their life always was interesting to me. And the most interesting fact was today, one's in charge, and tomorrow somebody else changes and they're in charge. And I always wondered how people got along that way, because in the business industry, somebody's your boss until they leave, and then you move up the chain. And here, everybody kind of just changes positions, and it's okay. And they did it with humility. They're always around for the kids. They made a difference. And the big theme was to make Jesus Christ known and loved. So I learned to live that life. John, I grew up at Columbus. I know that somebody says, well, you're part of the Brotherhood. Well, it's a little difficult when you're a female to be part of the Brotherhood. At least I don't see it that way. I'm part of the
family. Yes,
but it's
absolutely.
part of the family.
Yes.
And I was 29 when I started here. And even though I'm still a year younger than you are, John, for 9 months.
Hopefully you stay that way.
I did a lot of growing up here.
Yeah.
I didn't just have the opportunity to raise my kids here. I had the opportunity to grow up myself. And I think I've absorbed that, or at least I've tried to watch them do what they do as they live their life and try to live mine in the same manner, to care for others, to be humble, to kind of guide in a soft way, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does.
That's what I think being Marist means to me. And I hope that I too exhibit that and other people can learn from me. I've gotten involved in Marist of Champagnat now, and it's been a life. Columbus has not just been a job. It's been my life for the last 34 years. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to the Marist brothers and the entire Columbus community, including you, John. You made a difference for me.
I appreciate that. You have made a difference in so many people's lives, and your gain, your benefit, your enjoyment will be Columbus's loss. But listen, you've done enough, and you have made a difference. And on so behalf of everybody, the alumni, the faculty, the staff, everyone, thank you for your service at Columbus High School. And you'll always, always be part of the family. So
thank you, John. I feel that way, so thank you.
Yeah, this was fun. This was fun. And, I know you got a meeting, so thank you for doing this. Explore Nation, one of the great legends of the Columbus family, no doubt about it. The one and only Teri Chomat. Thank you, Teri.
Thank you, John. Have a great day.
Take care now. All right. Bye-bye. Yeah, thanks.
Bye.